Hi, welcome everybody to the podcast. Today I'm here with prolific.
That's right. We love it.
Okay, that's not actually how I'm going to start it.
Pussy. You pulled it.
It's your digital footprint. I don't.
Oh yeah.
Fuck it. That's how it's starting. So we gather
Right.
here to talk about one of the dumbest online debates I've ever had in my life, and I wanted you to commentate on it with me. If it would feel weird if it was just me.
Can you call it a debate?
I call
Can
it.
you call it a debate?
I call it the ramblings of a racist, but he would probably call it a discussion or something. I had to text him today. There's actually one screenshot in here that you haven't seen yet because I texted him today where I was just like, I'm done talking to you. And because he was like texting me about reparations.
Yeah.
It's crazy how the conversation devolved from Israel-Palestine to black people don't deserve reparations in the United States.
I'm gonna be honest. You know, I was busy working, so I was trying to skim through it, but I also just was not interested in what he had to say at all.
Dude, I skimmed through most of it too.
Yeah.
That's why if you read
it was so garbled.
If you read through some of my responses, it's
I'll pull them up. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm responding to some of it, and then other parts I'm ignoring because it's just so outlandishly bullshit. Here, I can share it with you on the screen.
Oh yeah, well I got them on my phone right here, but I mean, I like to kind of expound upon I think the kind of religious issue with this. I mean, you know, everyone likes to think that they're like God's chosen people or whatever, you know.
Yeah, would you think about him like using the Jews over and over as like a scapegoat?
Well, I mean, it was pretty obvious what he was doing. Let me I need to make sure I have my receipts. I'm gonna pull up these chats.
Because I was looking at it and I'm like, anytime we would bring up Israel, he would immediately go to but the Jews, and I'm like, I'm not talking about the Jews, I'm talking about Israel.
Talking about the IDF. Yeah, like you were so concise in your points and everything. Only thing I would say, and this is, I mean, it's semantics, but we're at a point where semantics matter. I'd make it a point to distinguish Israel from the IDF. You know, in the same way that we. I know you were making that like distinction in your head, obviously, but like that's the problem is that nobody nobody draws the line between the average Palestinian and Hamas. You know, so but that's really the problem is that both sides, neither side is drawing the distinction between you know a gunman shooting up a music festival versus you know, just grandma minding her own business.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's making that distinction, and I mean, you know, this whole thing is bought and paid for by the U.S. government.
Oh yeah.
You know, when they're when they're bombing those buildings, they're using American JDAMs, American you know, artillery, everything except for their tanks, which I think are, you know, they make them themselves. But everything else is bought and paid for by the leaders of the free world.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. Have you seen that sign in New York that it's like Biden pays for bombs that hit hospitals or something like that?
His I bet with you with how you've been keeping up with this, I bet you've been tracking his approval rating.
Oh yeah.
It's it hasn't been great, and that's what's terrifying is that we're going to be caught between this and a certain individual with 91 criminal charges pending.
Yeah.
We're going to be stuck, you know, between these two fellows, unless Gavin Newsom or you know, God knows who can weasel their way in there somehow.
Yeah,
But,
and the crazy part is like Trump is just a Zionist. People
Mm-hmm.
forget he moved the embassy to Jerusalem.
He did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
People always forget about that detail, and it's like, yeah, that was a huge point of controversy because
Mm-hmm.
he did it as like a religious statement for the white evangelical Christians.
Yeah. That's the problem. And I mean, when I said this was when I said that religion was the real evil in this war,
Yeah.
um, we have Jews and Arabs. Both of them think that they're God's chosen people or whatever. They're all murdering each other, and the white evangelical Christians are getting the popcorn
Oh
and
yeah.
just chowing down.
Because at the end of the
They
day,
love this. I mean,
they get the benefits of the rapture at the end of the day in their book.
exactly, yeah, and it really makes me wonder why all of these people are so competitively pro-Israel. I'm more pro-Israel. No, I ain't.
I'll bomb
Like
that hospital myself.
I'll bomb them harder. Yeah, I remember DeSantis and Trump were having this whole issue about who was more pro-Israel, and it's like, does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I
Yeah.
had brought it up with the guy because, and I'm not going to say his name obviously,
Yeah, yeah.
but I wish I had brought up with him the West Bank because when he's talking about in the DMs, he's saying like, oh, but Hamas is hiding here and they're hiding there and they're hiding everywhere. And that's why we are like, we need to go and bomb these places. I forgot to mention to him, what about the West Bank? There is no Hamas in the West Bank. And the IDF is like accidentally killing Israeli settlers in the West Bank thinking that they're Palestinians. And it's like,
Mhm.
there is no, not that there's, justification for the Gaza stuff, but at least they're giving excuses for it. There's like no excuse that they're even giving for the West Bank stuff. They're just sweeping it under the rug.
Right. And I don't remember. I think I was scrolling through social media or something, and I just saw this question proposed by someone. So just I don't know who I'm quoting here, but these aren't my original thoughts. If the Hamas leadership were hiding in Israel, would they have chosen the same military approach? And we know the answer is no. So it's not about killing Hamas, it's about killing Palestine.
I'd argue they would.
Really?
I've seen like where there's like a ton of people being like, well, what if they just like dropped a nuke on Gaza? And I've seen where there's like actual Israeli support for that without people realizing that Gaza's like half the size of New York City. Like if they dropped a nuke on Gaza, it would hit the Israeli border too. It would kill everyone in those communes on the Israeli border. So it's not just like, it's not just Palestinians that they would be nuking. They'd be nuking people in those communes. And I've seen people in those communes speak up about the Israeli response to the Hamas attack on October 7th.
Right.
And all of them are like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, Israel egged this on for so long, and then Hamas does this to us, and Israel's like, well, our solution is just keep going. And they're clearly not
Mm.
happy with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been waiting for an excuse to just flatten Gaza, and Hamas just handed them one on a silver platter, and that's another issue in terms of who Hamas actually represents. When I was talking about nobody making the distinction, do people not understand that Hamas has basically been keeping themselves in power since I think it was that what was it, '06 or '07, that
Oh, six,
election?
yeah.
All these pro-Israel people are like, well, they use the excuse that Osama bin Laden used
Yeah.
in the 9/11 attacks. Well, it's a representative democracy, therefore every civilian is a fair target because they paid for this.
Yeah.
Um, it's the exact same excuse, and when President Biden and President Obama talk about these things, they need to say things like that. Um,
But they won't.
it, yeah, well, there's not a strong enough condemnation of this. I mean, I'm for just pulling the plug on Israel in terms of military support, just outright.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's no other way um, to stop this, really. Well, no, I'm wrong. There is a way to stop this because we could easily pressure Israel, to stop this. I mean, we've done this times before in the Middle East. We've done it with Iran.
Yeah.
With the whole nuclear deal, U.S. pressure works
Dude, we
with
we
these
made
countries.
Israel sign a treaty to stop uh consuming Palestinian land, and they just didn't.
Yeah,
Like,
but that brings up the problem is that when that doesn't work, what do we do? We can't bomb Israel,
obviously,
you
yeah.
know. People, so and I guess this would segue into the one state versus the two state. Um, I was thinking that the two state solution would be more favorable because I was looking through the lens of what happened with Greece and Turkey with the Cyprus situation. Um, but then you brought up the one state solution in our conversation. I hadn't really thought about it in that way of giving equal rights to everyone. Um,
And
you know,
reparations.
I right. Yeah. And you're gonna have to kind of expound upon that because I'm just not familiar with how reparations worked. We talked about giving reparations to the ancestors of slaves, um, and I'm open to learning about that. I guess I'm just not informed enough to make an opinion on how do you do that.
Unfortunately, I'm not educated enough to really give a very detailed response to that. And that's actually something
Mhm.
that comes up in my conversation with this guy. Towards the end, he thinks he's winning because I'm not. He keeps going like, "How much money uh, are you willing to give?" And I'm like, "I can't give you an answer. I'm not an economist." And he's like, "But you're going like you're preaching reparations. Give me a number." And I'm like, "I'm not an economist. I'm just a
Yeah,
guy. Like I
yeah. There's a difference between a guy with an opinion and like a dude who's spent
yeah
years or decades studying the stuff that would be able to provide better answers. But I mean,
yeah
you know,
and
it's not like there aren't options. I mean, people talk about in the same vein as the U.S. supporting other countries militarily, Ukraine. People act like we're just throwing money down the toilet with Ukraine when we spend only about, I think it was less than 3% of our annual military budget
yeah
on Ukraine. We have money to throw around, you know.
yeah
It's not like we couldn't do it. I understand why the military budget is absolutely gigantic. You know, I get that these military projects, as somebody who is like a huge enthusiast about military projects and stuff, I know that these budgets can get absolutely insane. But it's not like we don't have money to throw around for these for these people. And when I'm talking about Ukraine, don't get the idea that I think aiding Ukraine and aiding Israel is kind of the same thing,
yeah
because people like to think that's why I was really upset that it got bundled in with the same funding package. Um, we're going to fund everybody, and including Taiwan, which I'm personally for that. For the funding of Taiwan, I think that's a whole sticky situation unto itself. You
yeah
know, um, but I've been upset by the response even from Democrats that because the solution among Democrats was basically to just pause it, maybe just keep bombing them, but just don't bomb them quite as hard.
yeah yeah
You know,
literally
and that's really upsetting because I have seen absolutely no politician in the newsfeed that I consume offering a demand for a ceasefire.
yeah
I think it was like a couple Democrat representatives in the House were calling for a ceasefire. That's it.
yeah
Um, I believe every member of the five did. Don't quote me on that. I could be completely talking out of my
I'm not
ass when I say
sure.
it.
So
But I want to say it was like a couple Democrats that actually called for a ceasefire, but that's it. There has not been a strong enough condemnation of this, bar Cenk Uygur. If you know about him, right?
I know about his presidential campaign. I
Which
know
I think is
he went on
Mhm.
Hassan's broadcast because Hassan's his nephew, and I saw
uh,
where they basically argued with each other for like an hour over. I think it was trans issues
oh
because Jank is kind of on the like, see, as like liberal progressives, we need to respond to this like bullshit. And Hassan is like, they're just throwing shit at you to distract you, and you're taking the bait. Like that was the whole debate. And
what do you mean?
like basically,
Like,
whenever a
what
conservative
Cenk's
is like,
position?
we need to do penis inspections. You know, like that bill never gets off the ground and it never goes
Yeah.
anywhere, but it gets the young Turks fired up because they're like, we need to
hmm
do something about this penis inspection law in Kansas City, Missouri. It's like no one
Yeah.
gives a fuck about that because it's not going to pass.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I've seen a lot of their content, and I'll admit a lot of it is a little kind of inflammatory. You gotta make headlines somehow, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but that was at least comforting on his opinion of that. He offered such a strong, condemnation of that. Didn't blame Israel or Palestine. The average person for this seems to be the only person doing that. Um, I think his campaign's going to fall flat on its
Oh
face,
yeah.
though. I mean, I might like some of his positions, at least from what I've seen so far. Um,
But it's a pipe dream.
yeah,
It's
but he's
a
not the incumbent. So
yeah.
if you're not the incumbent, and when we basically only have one other potential candidate, Gavin Newsom, maybe, um, and his voting record's all over the place. So I don't
Oh
even know.
yeah.
Like, I obviously vote for him because he's not Trump, which is unfortunate that I have to vote for somebody because they're not Trump.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be in a position to where we have to do that. Um, but he's not Trump. His voting record's all over the place. Did you see that visit to China he just did, where
No.
he like tackled a little Chinese kid?
No.
He was
What?
accidentally. He was. I just saw a clip. He was playing some kind of like sports with these little Chinese kids. I think it was like soccer or something. Um, yeah, I mean, it was a gaffe. When you look at the video, when
Listen to this
when you look
headline.
at the
Listen to this headline. Gavin Newsom steamrolls little kid during trip to China.
and when you look at the video, he didn't see the kid.
Yeah.
Um, at least from what I saw. Are you watching it right now?
I'm
From
about
what I
to.
remember, I just saw it once. From what I remember, it might not have been because I'll have to take another look at it. I saw it scrolling through YouTube Shorts the other day. I'm if I remember right, it was a situation to where neither of them were looking forward. They
Yeah.
both were doing sports stuff, and they just you know, um, accident. But when you're running for president, you can't afford to have these kind of. Actually, you know what? I was gonna say that you can't afford to have those kinds of public incidents, and 10 years ago I would have been right.
Yeah.
Um,
But since
but
Trump.
yeah. But since Trump and all the people after him that have kind of crawled out of the woodwork, the Lynn Wood, Lauren Boebert, um, the kind of failure of character that we've had recently. Um,
Yeah.
It's just been insane, and I don't know how we get like, can we just have a regular old sleaze bag? You know, I would rather just have that.
Can we just get a classic drone striking lawyer from Chicago
Yeah, like,
who's like
say
charismatic, where he makes you forget that he's like killing people in weddings in Yemen? Like, can we just get one of those again?
say what you want about Obama and his kind of foreign policy positions. I'm not for all of them. I'm not against all of them. You know, it's kind of hit or same with Gavin Newsom. It's kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
But at least he spoke intelligently. You know, have you seen any videos of Trump posting on his Truth Social? Um,
Uh, yeah, I have.
I've been following it absolutely obsessively because it's so goddamn funny. Like a former president constantly just losing his mind in front of a camera. In most of his videos where he just talks about, you know, Biden, crooked Biden, laptop, whatever. Um, all the videos where he talks about he has like two cameras set up and it kind of flips between them, one in front of him, one off to the side. And it makes me wonder, is there like a film, like there has to be a film crew standing behind the camera just watching this former president just completely lose his mind constantly.
I'd assume it has like professional lighting. It's a good quality camera. Do
Yeah,
you do you
calling
think
calling
you think he's reading off a teleprompter?
I don't know because it's his English and everything is just so mangled and terrible that the only way I could believe it was actually written is if it was written by Trump himself.
Yeah.
You know,
Wasn't he
calling.
known? Wasn't he known for making fun of Obama for using a teleprompter?
I'm sure he did. Um, I know what you're talking about. I think that was at one of his rallies
Yeah.
where he was like picking on Obama. I mean, he'll pick on Obama for anything. Um, and you know, not that he doesn't deserve some picking on, as I said with
But
some of his.
they never pick on Obama for the right reasons. That's the problem. It's literally
Mhm.
always Obama was too black and like
his tan suit that he wore one time.
yeah, he
You
put
know,
Dijon mustard on his burger in 2009. Like it's always for such stupid ass reasons. It's never for
and
like
not that he didn't pull us out of the Middle East when he should have.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, pulled us out of
wasn't.
Iraq with no plan, created ISIS doing that. He never pulled us out of Afghanistan. He continued the Syrian involvement in the Syrian civil war. He
Mhm,
like drone striked people like it was going out of sale. I mean,
yeah.
he even drone striked an American civilian on American soil.
When
He
was that?
I forgot what year it was. It was in his second term, I believe. He like passed a law that made it legal to drone strike Americans on American soil, which is like a huge controversial thing because you can't even
God,
deploy the military on American soil unless there's like a
yeah.
ground invasion. So he did this
Mhm.
law, and Trump was gonna like drone strike Mike Flynn at one point using that law,
Oh my
and
God.
and people were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this!" And then they started to realize, "Oh my god, this is one of Obama's laws." Like,
Um,
it's an Obama era law where you can just drone strike an American civilian on American soil. It's
that
so
was
crazy.
that's one time where I would like a president to just kind of undo some of the things that a former president did. That's the problem. We've been doing too much of that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when uh, when every president just immediately undoes everything that the previous one does. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, not that some of these policies need to stick around, as you know, bombing our own civilians on our own soil. You know, but
But undoing
I
like
guess it's
Obama era
price.
net neutrality and undoing parts of the Affordable Care Act that are like vital to people that are under it. Like
I
the
remember the whole net neutrality thing. Oh my God,
yeah,
that
remember
was that was such a disaster.
remember that
Ajit Pai
yeah, Jeep
and
Pie
his
and his
Nerf
big
gun and his
Reese's
fidget
mug.
spinner. Oh my God, and his
Oh
stupid
man.
3D glasses.
That dude was such a clown. I wonder what he's doing
Oh
now.
my God.
Is he's not
I
still
don't.
the F
He's got to be on some
he's
board or something. He probably Jeff Bezos himself, just kind of went into the shadows, on some board somewhere, you know.
he
Keeps all the power without all the publicity.
he's partnered with a
You know.
private equity firm called Searchlight Capital since he retired from FCC commissioner or chairman.
Oh, he retired.
Yeah,
I missed that.
he left when Biden became president, and yeah, I guess he invested in
Was that
some.
coincidental or was that an active protest?
I believe it's just part of the transition process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was there until inauguration. So yeah, it's just part of
Hmm.
the transition. I guess they already had like a replacement lined up for him. But that's the
Yeah, I
weird
mean,
part
they
is
probably didn't all these people.
people don't understand that Ajit Pai was put in the FCC under the Obama administration and then became the chairman under Trump. So
Oh, I
he
wasn't.
was, yeah, I mean, he was already working there.
I honestly wasn't familiar with it, as tends to happen with a lot of things. I'm not really familiar with them until they kind of go viral. You know, like with the whole Palestine and Israel thing, I had to like read up on like 4,000 years of history to like be
Yeah.
able to have an opinion on this.
And
You
here's
know.
the bullshit part about that conflict. So I started following it in 2021. I think it was when Israel like bombed something in the West Bank,
Mm.
and and then they killed that journalist. And then
Um,
like
um,
they like raided her.
Khashoggi something.
I don't remember her name, but they held her funeral, and then like the IDF attacked the people at her funeral, and
Mm.
the Israel was like, "Oh no, that was a Hamas fighter that shot her." And then like 3 months later, they were like, "Yeah, it was the IDF." Like they came clean 3 months.
Those months later.
And you
So
see why I can't fucking believe anything that comes out of the IDF because of something like that. They just go, "No, it wasn't us." And as soon as the heat is off of them, they're like, "Yeah, it was us." Like they're
same thing
not.
with that hospital bombing that just happened.
Yeah, I guarantee in a few months they're gonna go, "Yeah, we did that."
Well, I
They,
mean, it'll be a few months from now, so public consciousness will have faded by then.
yeah,
So
dude, the mental gymnastics of that bombing. So I was gonna say the first time I heard about the conflict was the Iron Dome thing. How we were sending like $1 billion to Israel for the Iron Dome. And I was
right.
thinking at the time, I was like, why the fuck are we funding the Iron Dome in Israel? And I started reading up on the conflict. And so when this came around, I was way more prepped for the arguments that were going to spike up. But the mental gymnastics of justifying and trying to explain that hospital bombing, I think I talked about it in my first Israel-Palestine episode, where the IDF was trying to say, like, Hamas failed a rocket launch. It
Right.
exploded in midair, and a piece of it leveled the whole hospital, killed 500 people, more than anybody had been killed in Israel by a Hamas rocket up to that point. I'm like, you have got to be smoking the largest crack pipe I've ever seen in my life to believe that. There's no
Right.
way. And they never present any evidence, not to the UN, not to the US, not that they need to. The US basically is up their ass. But it's like they don't present any evidence to anybody that even happened. And everybody just goes,
Mm.
"Yeah, I believe it. A piece of shrapnel from a Hamas like pipe rocket blew up an entire
That's the
hospital."
problem. Is who do we think it is? Do we think it's the terrorist group that had to hang glide into a musical festival to or do we think uh or do we think it's maybe these this other country that's been kind of propped up by the US militarily, the most powerful military in the world bar none for decades,
Yeah.
and has a history of bombing dozens of other hospitals.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm not saying Hamas, doesn't, commit the same kind of atrocities they do. Um,
Obviously, yeah.
they don't have that kind of technology accessible to them.
Yeah.
If they did, it would be terrifying. So I'm glad they're not. But they every time every time people have seen a Hamas rocket, it's this little rinky-dink thing with incompatible
Yeah.
parts and it's scrap. And then I uh, I saw a video of that strike. It was the closest, best video
Where
of
it
the
was like
attack that we have
completely
now.
dark and it was like a rocket and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It was mostly the sound, and you can tell by the sound of what these missiles are. I don't have the video on me, but
It sounded like a JDAM.
yeah, it sounded like a big, huge rocket that you
Yeah.
can hear from, like miles away. And you would have heard the launch if it had come from the hospital too. In that same video, you would have heard the launch. You would have heard that, and then,
Yeah.
when it hits the hospital, but you didn't hear that. You heard a missile, presumably coming from miles and miles away from another country, perhaps, and smacking this hospital and, killing a bunch of people that were just trying to get treatment.
And did you see that video that went around? I think it was on Twitter a lot, and I'm in the community notes program on there, so like I see all the proposed ones. And there's a
Right.
video that was going around where they were like, "Look, it's a Hamas rocket that hit the hospital. All the power is on to every surrounding building." This was after they had cut power to the country.
No way that's Gaza, yeah.
And the video predates this year. It's from like 2 years ago, or it's from like 2018. It's from before this year. And it's like all the community notes are like, this is such a fake ass video. Like it's real, but it's not of that situation. And
Mhm.
when every surrounding building has power on, even though the official statement from Israel is like, we just cut power to that fucking country. Like, how are you going to try to pass off that video? And with the hospital, that particular hospital, I don't know if you saw the lead up to that explosion. It was literally Israel going, we're going to bomb that hospital, evacuate that hospital. They then
called
fired
them 3 times.
Yeah, they then fired a test launch at that hospital and bombed a piece of it. And then 2 days later, this massive explosion goes off at the hospital, kills 500 people, and they go, wasn't us.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Well,
what are we doing here, guys?
yeah, literally. That's the problem is Russia has been accused of doing a lot of the same thing. They'll blow up. They've been blowing up a lot of Bradleys recently with this new attack and stuff. Unfortunately, not nearly as much to make it proportional to their own losses. But what they'll do is they'll blow up like one Bradley or something. They'll take a video from 7 different angles so they can make it look like 7 different Bradleys that they blew up.
Yeah.
And they'll grab an old video from years ago or whatever. So why would Israel not do the same thing
Yeah.
in trying to kind of distance itself from these attacks? Like I said, who do we think it is? Maybe it's the guys who have already been bombing hospitals. Maybe it's the guys who roof knock buildings when they drop duds on them.
Oh, yeah.
It's called roof knock, and yeah, they'll drop a dud, and you'll hear the big noise from it hitting the roof, and that's how they know that the
warning
next day,
shot.
the next day it's not going to be a dud.
Oh, it's even worse than that. It's even worse.
They might not even give them a day. I don't know how long they give them.
It's like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I've watched video examples where journalists like the Associated Press will just be filming buildings in Gaza being blown up, and they'll send the roof knocker, give them like a minute to leave the building, and then they blow up the entire building.
Right.
And it's like,
disgusting.
I guess Hamas was in there. We'll never know because you obliterated the evidence. Like,
yeah.
How convenient
Hamas
is that?
is in Qatar.
Yeah, dude, Hamas is apparently in my closet. I mean, send the ICBM now. You could tell them that Hamas is in Jerusalem and they would missile the Western Wall. Like, or they would they would literally blow up a mosque.
That's what I was a little skeptical of, and you, I'm willing to listen to your opinion on that, but I was a little skeptical when I said that they wouldn't do that if Hamas was in Israel. So what makes you think they would?
Well, obviously I was exaggerating when I mentioned Jerusalem because it's a holy city. I don't feel like
I won't like nuke it. Yeah,
I don't think they would even touch that. Because the whole world would turn against them if they did.
Yeah.
But,
well, like I said, I think it's about. I don't think it's about keeping Israel safe, even though that's the initial excuse that they used. It's about killing Palestinians. So if Hamas leadership was in Israel somewhere, they wouldn't have the same approach. What they'd probably do They're a country that's been, like I said, kind of sucking on the tit of the U.S. for a while. They have some of the best special forces in the world. That we've seen that demonstrated several times. They could easily, take I don't know, a few weeks, few months, however long they want to take to gather, intelligence on where these people are, send in special forces, to take them out.
But then how are they going to kill the Palestinians?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they were worried about Hamas, that's what they would do, and they haven't done that because they they want to cleanse it.
Yeah. I think I will probably change my position then. I think because that does kind of display a more powerful point as to how they value life. I feel like if they thought Hamas was in like Tel Aviv, they probably would send like a special task force into
like
Tel
what
Aviv.
they did with the Munich massacre. Remember, when was the Munich massacre? Was it in what year was that?
It's in the 40s or something, right?
No,
no. It's way more recent than that.
I want to say 70s to 90s. I'm gonna fact check myself real quick.
I'm looking it up.
Hang on, but that's what they did. Oh yeah, you got me. But yeah, that's what they did with those guys. They sent the special forces in, busted in, took them out the same way we did. Same way we that's how we did Bin Laden.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because that's happened twice now, to where we flatten the whole country and then we kill the leadership with the special forces.
That's such a good example because they were in West Germany, and they're like, okay, there are what 8 or 9 Palestinian I think it's like 8 Palestinian,
like a very small amount.
Yeah, and they took hostages and they killed 2 people, and it's instead of what Israel would do if this was in Gaza, they would just launch a cruise missile at whatever building they think they're all in and kill everybody in it. But because it's in West Germany, in Europe, they're like, oh, well, we can't just like bomb an entire building in, capitalist West Germany, But so do you think if it was in East Germany, they would bomb the whole building at the time?
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar enough with how Israel viewed the East and West Germany situation to really comment on that. But maybe, I don't know. What answer would you like?
I don't know. I don't know, because Israel's a very capitalist, like right-wing authoritarian kind of country.
Right.
So I'm sure they're very anti-Soviet Union. I'm sure they're very anti-communism.
Probably, yeah. They probably would not treat it the same.
Oh yeah. If Palestine all of a sudden decided we are following the words of Lenin and Marx and we are now a communist society, they would probably be like, all right, United States, does that give us the go-ahead to drop the nuclear bomb? Like, it would be so over. That would be worse than a Hamas attack in the eyes of the Israeli government. Like,
yeah.
And God, I feel like I had a wider point about that. It's about like Netanyahu.
And how he's crazy.
Yeah, it feels like he's just on like this war path to kill as many people in the Gaza Strip. And they pulled settlers out of the Gaza Strip years ago so they could do this. Like, that's why they're not doing it to the West Bank. There's too many Israeli settlers in the West Bank. People that have gone in that either are there for their birthright trip or they live in Israel and they were born in Israel, who are all like these sick freaks that go in and take these Palestinians' homes by force, and the IDF backs it. And did you see that video from 2 years ago of the guy from Brooklyn who was like, I have a right to take you home, because he's like a Jewish guy from Brooklyn?
I've not seen that. Yeah, you'll have to send me that.
He's like, if I don't take it, somebody else will. And the family there is like, this is literally our house. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I have a birthright to this stuff. Like, this is my right to take your home. And the part that sucks is that they can't call the police or anything or any kind of defense force because they'll side with the settler.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I think this brings up the point that I just don't. I'm having this like crisis because I just don't get how people can do that. And you know, I'm gonna sound, you know, naive when I say that, but you know, the lack of empathy on
Yeah.
both. Like I said, there's no there's no normal opinion on this issue. It's all one way or the other way, flatten Israel or flatten Gaza.
Yeah.
I really think if you put these people, or if you put, better yet, Netanyahu or the leaders of this country in that plaza in Gaza, and you know, let them listen to people, you know, screaming and bombs falling for a few hours, you know, would that you know, would that cause a change of position? I mean, that's pure fantasy. I mean, that'll,
Yeah,
you
I don't
know,
know if it would.
these leaders will never gain that sort of perspective.
That's 30 years of
Um,
bigotry in Netanyahu. I don't think you could undo it
you
with
can't.
I mean, he's already killed 4,000 children in the Gaza Strip. Like I think
Yeah,
the total as of today is over
might be old
10,000.
numbers by now.
Well, as of today, the total is over 10,000 and 4,000 are children. Overall,
I think it's like half.
two-thirds. Huh?
Mhm. I think it's like a half of, like, there's such a significant amount of children in Gaza.
Yeah.
Isn't it like half or something? I don't
Yeah.
know exact numbers.
Yeah, half the
Yeah,
population's under 18. And
I don't even
um
remember like what's going on between these two countries. They're not old enough.
oh yeah.
They don't even know what's going on.
And it's like, did you see that like sick freak that tried to justify killing people ages 10 and up in the Gaza Strip because
Ooh,
Hamas recruits 15-year-olds? That's what they were saying. They were saying
I
that 10 to 15-year-olds aren't children because they can be recruited by Hamas.
I just don't even get that because even then, is it Hamas's fault or is it the kids' fault? You know, like even if you know, the IDF was like, or even if Hamas was like using kids as soldiers, which I mean they probably are. You know, does that justify just killing every kid? Like, what's the metric by which we can decide
Yeah.
which kids we kill and which ones we don't kill? You know, I guess it's just whether if they're being, you know, brainwashed and used like tools by a terrorist organization. I guess that makes it their fault.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I just don't get how people can have that kind of logic. You
so
know,
I for the last few weeks I've been comparing it to the US because I'm sure you know the details of the war on terror and the absolute hellish landscape we created in Iraq and the like destroyed government of Afghanistan that we left behind. And
mm,
all of that was in response to, well, in response to 9/11. It really, what it is was Afghanistan, we wanted to invade as a response to 9/11. Iraq, we used 9/11 as an excuse because Colin Powell had plans to invade Iraq like 9 months
right.
before 9/11, and which came out in like declassified
Convenient.
briefings and stuff. Yeah, and uh, I've compared it where I'm like, think about the amount of people that died in 9/11. Like horrible
Mm,
tragedy, almost 3,000 people died in the towers, and you know, not even including the first responders.
right.
Think about how that scales to our response. The millions of people we killed in the Middle East
Yeah,
after that.
millions.
Yeah. A country like Iraq, which we had already uh, strangled in the Gulf War, and, you know, all these invasions we had already done over there. And then we go in for our final, as Bush calls it, the Holy War, as he called it at the
Oh yeah, I
time.
remember that.
Yeah, he called it a Holy
Again,
War.
religion.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's our holy war right to go and destroy this country because they might have weapons of mass destruction. Like, and like, think about
it,
the propaganda there. We lied to the UN. We wouldn't let UN inspectors in. We kept lying to them about the weapons of mass destruction, and we invaded anyway. That war lasted 10 years. Then we re-invaded because of ISIS, because we saw ISIS as this existential threat who had like barely scratched the mainland of the U.S., yet we used that as a huge justification to send even more troops to Iraq. I remember when we did that because it was all over like CNN Student News of Obama sending more troops in, then followed by, but we're having good relations with Cuba. Like, it's just such it's a crazy thing to me that we killed so many people in those two countries in response to one terrorist attack that killed 3,000 people.
What I think people need to get is that no matter what your beliefs are on a particular issue, if one side feels increasingly marginalized and victimized, whether that is real or perceived. I mean, take a look at what's going on with MAGA Republicans, like making up all this stuff to be afraid of. So whether or not it's real or perceived, it's going to radicalize people, and it's going to make them increasingly willing to take more violent measures for their cause. Any issue, like I said, MAGA Republicans, Palestinians becoming, increasingly radicalized, and Hamas kind of being a product of Israel's treatment of Palestine.
Yeah.
And this attack being, like the UN secretary said, these attacks didn't happen in a vacuum. And then of course Israel got mad at that guy for saying that.
Yeah.
That, it's almost like this horrible situation is a product of the situation that you created, But I think when we look at it like that, is in that treating these sorts of issues with indiscriminate violence and stuff is only going to create and entrench more resistance. The Nazis figured that out when they occupied France.
Yeah.
That, hey, shooting people in the street and, implementing these laws that these people aren't familiar with at all is going to create and entrench more resistance.
Yeah.
Israel ought to know that. We should have known that.
Benito Mussolini.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about how many socialists he killed before the country was like, all right, fuck this dude. And they like they ousted him from the government, and this like group of socialist like freedom fighters basically were like, hand him over, and the German soldiers handed him over.
And they did, and they put him on a wall. And
yeah, they killed him by firing squad and then hung him up upside down for the town square to see. Like, that's just what happens. And dude, it's so funny how Europe has the balls to do that, and the U.S. like shudders in fear if you talk about not liking the president.
That would be crazy. I mean, even considering like just I don't know a judge on the entire planet that would have, or at least in the U.S., that would have the balls to jail Trump for violating his gag order.
Yeah.
Doing any kind of thing with a former leader like that is insane here. And maybe that's a product of, at least being a semi-free society, to where everyone has the right to feel offended, whether they are or not.
Everyone has the right to be stupid.
Yeah. So at least we have that luxury to be scared of stuff like that happening. Maybe that's a good thing. If we're getting to, granted, I would love to see Trump, dragged out of his jail cell and just, get mobbed by a bunch of people.
Wait, can I bring up that DM that you sent me where you did the typo? Do you remember?
Oh wait, what did I say?
When I was like, it'd be kind of, we were talking about how entertaining the Trump stuff is, and you said to me, let me find the screenshot. I
don't remember what I said.
It makes me cry laughing every time I read it. I said, golden Trump content. He'd be so entertaining if he just got a reality show. And you said, or if I got fucked to death by a bunch of big dudes in the shower.
Oh yeah, shit. I was talking about him. Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite like typos of all time.
Or if he did. I
Because
mean,
it took you so long to say
oh.
that back. It was like the first thing I read.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Or if I got fucked by a bunch of big dudes in a prison shower.
I love to see Donald Trump get fucked to death by a bunch of big dudes in a prison shower. Yeah.
Of course, but it'd be equally as entertaining if I also got fucked by a bunch of big dudes in a prison shower.
Oh, man.
It's so
But yeah,
good.
like like I would love to see that shit happen to Trump, but it's like we can't go that far. We at least have to kind of have the veneer of civility. You know,
Have you
I
huh?
say what? Go ahead.
Have you heard what happens if he actually does like get held in any kind of jail? That the Secret Service
No,
has to go with it?
that's what I was gonna say. I don't think he's gonna be jailed. You never, they didn't get Hitler.
Well, he
You
killed
never,
himself.
yeah. Well, you never get the big fish, and
Are you
with the
thinking they're
exception of,
gonna like Epstein him?
I think he's gonna no. I think he's gonna get a slap of the on the wrist. I don't think he's gonna spend time in jail. Maybe I don't know. 91 charges is a lot. Um, but like I said, it doesn't really come down to is he guilty or not. It's a matter of okay, he is, but do we have the balls to jail him
Yeah.
and do that thing where I talked about when you increasingly marginalize people and they act increasingly violent. Trump just lost the election and we almost had them, overthrow the government. They put him in jail.
Oh yeah. Dude, the Fulton County Jail would be like lit on fire. Which I mean,
Bombed.
I'm not like too opposed to them destroying the Fulton County Jail
Fulton County Jail, yeah.
because of how horrific it is, but at
Yeah,
the same
it's a
time, like,
shithole.
can we pick a day where I'm not at work for them to do that? Because I don't want to be up there when they do it, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Have to work up there, yeah.
Fonnie Willis is controversial herself. I mean, isn't she like one of the big proponents of Cop City?
I'm honestly not. I'm familiar with the Cop City thing. I'm not really familiar with Fonnie Willis and her opinions. Maybe I don't know, but
She's the DA that's bolstered the whole thing with the RICO charges. Like they like kind of redid the way that they do them, and they got who's that rapper that's in jail in Atlanta right now that's on trial? They got him on RICO charges, the new ones.
probably a few.
Yeah, they like used his song lyrics to
I sort of know what you're talking about. I don't have a name coming to me right now,
it's
but
like
I think I know what you're talking
YW
about.
something. But
Yeah, I think I know.
they like and in a way it's kind of racist the way that they do it where they're like here's what he was rapping about and 100% true. Lock him up. Like that was like their starting point and then they like were able to
What
find
was he
more
rapping?
after. Just like gang stuff, killing people, just stuff like that.
I mean, that's music, dude. Like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna arrest? Slipknot and all these metal bands for having like violent lyrics and shit. And, like,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean fuck it, put
um,
Bruce Springsteen in jail, you know, where he's singing about come
but
over here little girl.
but like I was saying, with Trump's future, I don't think he's gonna go to jail. You never get the big fish. I do think at the very minimum he's gonna be fighting lawsuits for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I mean that's gonna be happening either way. Um, because all of these states have been basically given the green light to sue Trump with the whole election situation, and the defamation of these voting and stuff.
What
The
do
fact that
you
his own lawyer
no,
say
go
what?
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the fact that his own lawyers are, taking a plea
Yeah.
should tell his supporters that, oh, maybe it's something, but no, these people are too far down the hole anyway. They'll just think it's rigged. It's all rigged. Just like Trump himself will think that it's all rigged.
Yeah, because
Or maybe he doesn't think it and he just says it.
now they're cooperating with the January 6th committee with Jack Smith and all that.
Right.
So,
Hmm. Well,
but
that's why he's condemning them on Truth Social, because the second you stop being unflinchingly loyal to Trump is when he flips on you, you know. Um, but
what is
I don't think he's going to jail.
what is his goal? Like,
Just to grift for as long as he can until maybe he can get some money for legal fees. He's just in survival mode at this point. He thinks everyone's betrayed him. It's insane, you know.
yeah, because like with Bush and Cheney, they had very clear like overall goals. You know, Bush had his own hands tied into stuff, and Cheney was like an executive who was making decisions that were directly benefiting the company that he was an executive over. And I mean,
Republicans in general just don't have a plan.
yeah, they're
You know?
usually always corrupt to some extent, and they're usually able to hide it from the general voter base. And like Dick Cheney
Mhm.
was like a huge corporate mogul who did literally
Mhm.
every decision that would benefit him and his companies. You know, the whole like, oh, put my company in a trust so I have no conflict of interest. Dude, Trump was just like, here you go, kids, here's my company. And it's like,
Mhm.
or he didn't even give up his company, I don't think. I think he broke that tradition.
I thought he did.
Which
I might have missed that.
which for me to call it a tradition is crazy because it's constitutional to not have
Right.
a conflict of interest. You can be
Right.
impeached for not doing that. But of
Right.
course,
Exactly.
impeaching a president in this country is like finding a dodo bird. I mean, it's, you know,
It's crazy that we did it twice.
but
But
what
then
good did
again,
it do?
you
Because
could
we didn't
impeach
remove
every
him.
president since Eisenhower for something.
What is it like? You can impeach a ham sandwich? Is like the fucking what's that phrase in law, in like the law world? You can impeach,
If we'd actually been following
or
all of our own laws,
you can
we could
indict a
have
ham
impeached basically
sandwich.
every president.
It's the phrase is you can indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah, that's great. I don't think they're gonna get it. And even I was watching the Republican debate, and like even the least insane Republicans right now, which I would say would probably be Chris Christie and Nikki Haley, they're still bought and paid for by the Defense Department.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can look back at Nikki Haley's record with her foreign policy, um, as an ambassador and all that stuff. But at least they're not dangerously insane. You know, um,
Yeah.
that debate was great. Um, Vivek Ramaswamy was thought to be the kind of post-Trump successor, I guess, and that seems to just kind of fallen apart. I don't know what the Republican Party is going to do if Trump can't, I mean, if he goes to jail. Because I mean, if he does go to jail, like I said, I don't think he's going to. But I mean, Ron DeSantis, nobody else is polling enough. Like, you know, this is going to be like a crisis. This next election is going to be just insanity.
Yeah, because on one hand, there's multiple issues on both sides. One, I think like Ron DeSantis, they would grab him and be like, "Shut the fuck up and only say what we tell you to say." I feel like that's
Exactly.
gonna
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
the number one thing they
Because we
do.
thought right, because we thought he was going to be the kind of regular moderate as opposed to Trump. That's why he became so popular in
But
the
he's
first
just
place,
fucking crazy with like a
and
charisma
that's
black
why he
hole.
tanked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is what we're doing here. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing, dude? Like, how is a
He's
guy from
weird in
Florida?
public.
How is a guy from Florida, one of the most charismatic generating states, one of the most like annoying, just goofy ass people?
He
Everyone I've ever
reminds
met,
me of me.
everyone I've
How
ever met
I
from
act.
Florida is so cool.
he reminds me of how I act in public. He just doesn't seem like he wants to be around anybody. He seems like super anxious. He's like, I'll just let's say hi to everyone over here. Like he's I don't know. And when he gets in front of the TV, he's gonna bobble his head and stuff, and then he's gonna put on that show. But I don't know what we're gonna do. I would rather Nikki Haley or Chris Christie, but I don't know what we're gonna do.
Here's what I'm gonna say we're gonna do.
Oh yeah, his finger.
First, we're gonna get rid of every trans hospital in the Tampa Bay area. Second, it's just so like, and then so here's the problem with Vivek is he's too 4chan coded. Have you ever know?
Yeah.
Like, he gets into the weeds way too hard in the debates. He's like, but see, look at our national defense budget. Like with the numbers here, and then he just goes on like a calculations nightmare, and he's lost everybody.
He's like Ben Shapiro in that he's so articulate that you don't know he's actually stupid.
Yeah. He's like
they have a way of pumping out Republicans that sound really smart when they're not. I mean, there's a name for it. It's called gish galloping. When you just keep talking, the other person won't really be able to formulate an argument because they'll be too focused on what the fuck you're saying and trying to dissect all of it. That's kind of how he strikes me as somebody who's not really quite as smart as people think he is.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like I was shocked at how easy it was wasn't it like Nikki Haley went up against him in the debate, like she called him out for receiving some kind of grant.
liked her in that debate. Like I said, I wouldn't vote for her. But I liked her opinion on abortion that for a Republican, not supporting a federal ban, an outright federal total ban, is a pretty good position for a Republican to actually leave it up. Say let's leave it up to the states. Yeah. I like that. Still wouldn't vote for her, but for a Republican, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, I feel like so. In terms of what trouble both parties are in, on one hand you have Trump, who's going to be buried underneath the jail probably at this point, and I honest to God think he will go to jail. I think at this point it's just undeniable. Like he's going to go to jail for something.
Thinking that I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't believe that, but I am totally open to believing that. I totally want that to happen. So, I would love to think differently. And like I said, 91 charges is a lot. That's a lot of you're really rolling the dice on those in terms of managing to avoid jail on all of those. So maybe you're right. I mean, that's a lot of charges. I don't think he can get out of that, even a former president. But like I said, I think it comes down to who he is and who the judge is. And the judge would have to be someone with the balls to jail a former president.
Yeah.
Who has insane, dangerous, violent cult supporters. I think it would come down to that decision of a public safety issue. Like I said, it wouldn't really come down to whether he did it or not. We know he did.
Yeah.
But I think it would come down to that. So, but I'm totally open to changing my mind on that if that ends up being the case. So.
Well, so then we flip over to the Democratic side of the ticket, which...
Yeah, what are we going to do about Biden? Oh, my God.
Here's the problem with the two political spectrums is that when you're a Republican, all you have to say is, I denounce racism, wink, and then, like, everybody's like, he's racist, let's vote! Yeah, literally. Let's go! We're going to the polls, people! And then you got, like, Farmer Bill on his tractor riding 20 miles down to the town square. And then the one guy who works there, who's the mayor, tax collector, and vote carrier, is going to take your Trump vote to the state. Like, but with the Democrats, the problem with the Democratic Party is how pinned to the moderate position it is that
Uh-huh.
you have this
Not going far
wide
enough.
yeah, you have this wide array of ideas where with the Republicans it's like you can generally agree with them and they'll still somewhat defend you and side with you. With the Democrats it's like you have the moderate Democrats who are like a little racist, but they're still like liberal, but they aren't economically
Less
liberal.
cohesive
Yeah, they're not
as the
like
party.
yeah, they're not like economically progressive at all, but they're like, hey, I mean, I would give a gay couple of cake. And then you have like the liberals who think they're progressive, even though if they see a black person coming towards them on the sidewalk, they cross the street. And then you
Yeah.
have the leftist progressives who are like disappointingly, begrudgingly voting Democrat because it's the only option, but they wish there was more. And that's kind of where we fall. And then you
Right,
have
exactly.
like then
Exactly
you
where I fall.
then you have like the radical communist leftist who are like, I'm not voting for anybody because they all suck and we should just abolish the government and live in a commune, like one
I'm
big
sure everyone
commune.
will instantly change your mind and decide to vote with you on that.
Exactly. And so it's this one big variety party that's really hard to please, where on one hand like the moderates are a little bothered by the Trump stuff because it's all under a Democrat ran government and a lot of the most
Right.
severe charges are under a liberal run Fulton County like district attorney, and then the like liberal progressives are like, I'm gonna vote for Biden no matter what. Like I don't give a
Right.
shit. But then the leftist progressives are upset over the lack of Palestinian support, and they're upset over the failure to deliver on the student loan forgiveness, and the failure to come up with a better healthcare plan, and
Mm-hmm.
just completely falling flat on its face on like any promise he made during his campaign. The only good decision Biden ever made that I fully supported was pulling out of Afghanistan. And that's the decision that made every moderate jump ship. Like everyone hated
Right.
that. It was going to be messy no matter what. There was no exit strategy that was going to make that a good exit plan. You would have had to occupy the country forever to prevent something like this. There's a
Yeah,
reason
like the
why.
Taliban were going to come back. They were
Yeah,
waiting for it. That's
they
why it
took
happens so fast.
back Kabul in like 48 hours.
I
And
think we could have left less expensive U.S. military equipment there,
yeah, I
but
guess.
but then again, I can't blame that on Biden personally. I don't know who up in the military chain is to blame for those mistakes, but
Well, for them, it's
uh,
because it was more economically sound to do it. It was cheaper to leave it all there, and a lot of it was outdated equipment. A lot of it was breaking down. I, I, I'm sure at this point, a lot of that stuff that we left there is like barely functional at this
mhm,
point. But,
right. Oh
um,
God, I hope so.
but there's a reason why Trump set this plan in motion and then never went through with it. Like he's the
Mm.
architect of the exit plan, and Biden was like, "Well, fuck it, let's just do it," and then he did it. He did it on the 20th anniversary, and I remember watching press conferences, and just Biden being like, "Folks,
Uh,
uh, we pulled out." And then
we
like
did.
I remember a reporter like tried to ask him a question, and he just kind of went, and then an advisor like pulled him off stage
We
and like
won.
they just left. Yeah, he was literally like, "Fuck you, Jack. We left Afghanistan." But now they're talking about like potentially sending troops to Israel or even sending them to like satellite countries around Ukraine.
Uh,
And it's like I guess if Hezbollah gets involved in the Hamas Israel war, that's when the US would start to kind of creep in a little bit more. But
I
then that
think
would
it's inevitable
maybe
that the U.S. is going to create. I think the U.S. is going to get involved in this situation again. It's spiraled out of control too much. Uh, Iran is probably going to get involved. I think
yeah.
it's going to come down to Iran, really.
Did you see all that stupid shit where they were trying to be like, oh, Iran is using that $6 billion that the South Korean government like released back to them. They used the six
Those were
billion
just
to
assets
launch.
that we froze,
Yeah.
and we had been monitoring them,
Yes.
to make sure they were allocating it,
And there
in
were
the right
people
manner.
saying that they gave those funds to Hamas to carry out
We
that
just
attack,
gave it. We just
which
gave them a giant stack of cash of money,
which
and
the
here,
funny
go buy
part
a bunch of tanks.
which the part
You
about
know,
that is that Iran hadn't even received that money yet when Hamas attacked that
right,
music festival.
right.
They didn't
They
even
didn't even know what
have
was
it.
happening. They were shocked
Yeah.
by that attack. I mean, yes, they support them, but they had no. We already, and that's the thing. The U.S. is trying to pin that on Iran. Like I said, how I think the U.S. is going to get involved
Yeah.
because the current administration is already setting the
They're
stage
gearing up.
and and trying to gain control of the narrative. Iran supports Hamas. Iran knew about the attack. Iran greenlighted it.
Yeah.
What else would the US be doing if not setting the stages for an eventual conflict? You know?
Yeah, and uh it's I think if this had happened 5 years ago, because I've seen people be like, "Oh, this is gonna like spark a world war," and I think if this war had escalated to the point that it's escalated to 5 years ago, I think we would have been at risk for that. Because if Hezbollah got involved and Iran got involved, then Russia would have got involved. I think the Russian invasion of Ukraine is holding Russia back, and I think the like small diplomatic ties we still have with Iran is also holding us back. But if it was like fresh in the aftermath of Trump destroying the Iran nuclear deal and Russia literally having nothing else better to do than to invade a country, I think it would
The
have broken out into a horrible
only
war.
the only country that I think, at least right now, like I said, this is a crazy situation, so my opinions are going to be changing constantly. But in my opinion, right now, is that the only country that could start World War III is China. Um, it is a fundamental like part of their country. Um, and like their fundamental objective to take Taiwan. They're determined to do it. Um, they're gonna try. Probably, I think it would be a massive disaster for everyone. Um, militarily at least, like because and that's not even talking about the economic consequences of the two biggest traders in the world. Like goods traders, not like
Yeah,
treacherous
yeah,
traders.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Some of the biggest
The two
exporters on
biggest
earth.
the two biggest economic powers in the world going to war with each other. It's I don't think China would win that war. Like geographically, um, it would be very hard for them to win a war in the open sea with us. But I mean, a war between the U.S. and China in the open oceans and the Pacific, that would be World War III. I don't think World War III is going to be the Middle East. I thought it was going to be Russia, but my opinion changed. I think Russia is barely, uh, it's kind of losing relevance because I mean they've kind of falling off. They're falling off with China. Um, this war is just dragging out, and I think Russia is just becoming increasingly less relevant in this conversation.
Yeah.
Um, China could fuck the whole planet up if it wanted to, though,
Oh,
and they
probably.
very well might.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know, but maybe it might be with the Middle East because I don't know. Like I said, Iran. Uh, we know that they broke the nuclear deal. We do not have any evidence of this time that they are actually further enriching their uranium because they don't have it to. I think it's like 90% enriched that is weapons grade. They don't have it to that. I think they're hovering around. I think it was 50 or 60%.
Yeah.
Um, and we have no evidence that they're working on it right now. So we know they're not building a nuke. But as this situation becomes crazier, they might start. I don't know if they will. Like I said, I'm not offering that as a statement of fact, but we just don't know what's going to happen because I mean, this is spiraling out of control. It's insane, and somebody with a fucking brain needs to come in and stop this.
Somebody with
You know,
no economic incentive with a brain needs to come in
yeah, or
because
religious incentive.
we've had plenty of smart people enter the government that are then immediately corrupted by money, like almost overnight. Like here's an example of a politician that severely disappointed me recently. John Fetterman.
I thought
He's
you were gonna say
the
John Austin.
no,
I don't
he's
know enough about
he's been
Federer. What's he
disappointing
do?
me.
Yeah.
John Fetterman's the one who won against Dr. Oz last year
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
become senator of Pennsylvania, and
Mhm.
he was like a super leftist candidate, like one of the most progressive senators in the Senate. And he's the guy that's been like wearing hoodies to the Senate and stuff, like trying to get the dress
That was
code.
the only thing I knew about this guy. Like
Yeah,
I'd seen some like press conferences with him and stuff here and there, but the only thing I really remembered about John Fetterman was the damn hoodie scandal.
yeah,
You know, like who fucking cares?
literally.
Obama can wear a tan suit. A dude can come in with informal dress as long as it's not like obscene.
Isn't the
You
tan
know,
suit thing so crazy?
yeah.
Yeah,
Like as
so
long as you're not wearing anything like actually like offensive or obscene, you could come in casual clothes. You're gonna be sitting for several hours. You know, I get it. You know,
but so recently he was on camera basically like, you know, basically saying that Israel has a right to defend itself. That's what he was saying.
uh,
And I was like,
it does, but Israel isn't defending itself right
Israel's
now.
the aggressor in the whole
It's
conflict.
exactly
Yeah.
it. That's the thing. These people aren't telling the same story, and it makes them sound like they're siding with Israel on this and just not giving a shit about Palestinians. And I hope that's not the case, but that's what it seems. Like I said, I don't like the Democrats' position on a lot of this stuff either. Like I said, there hasn't been a strong enough confrontation on Israel to stop this. Um, it's all just Israel has a right to defend itself.
Yeah.
Like
Just completely ignoring the years and years before that they were indiscriminately bombing Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
yeah, like it makes me want to make a big sign of like a dead Palestinian kid with his face smashed open and then hold it up in the back of these press conferences.
Be like,
You
this is
know,
what you're supporting.
yeah,
Is
like,
yeah.
you know, make them look at this shit because they're not looking at it.
Did you see that
If
post
they
on
are looking at it, they're ignoring it. And in that case, I don't know what the fuck we need to do. Vote them out,
Did you see
I
that
guess.
post on Justin Bieber's Instagram where it was a
I
picture of
didn't.
like it was like a picture of a place in Gaza that had been completely leveled and it said praying for Israel? And people pointed out that it was a picture of like a destroyed building in Gaza and he immediately erased it and replaced it with just like a blank
I
picture.
I was gonna look for that, or I bet somebody already screenshotted it.
Oh
Hang
yeah.
on.
Here, Justin
Justin Bieber, Gaza.
for praying for Israel. Yeah, this
Oh, yeah,
do you see it?
that's fucking funny.
Isn't
Yeah,
that
because Hamas.
crazy?
Oh my god,
It
that's fucking funny.
just shows how ignorant so many of
Yeah,
these people are.
yeah.
And the fact that
No,
it's almost kind of more gross that he erased it and replaced it with a blank image that said praying for Israel, just completely ignoring the fact that Israel flattened this like random city block in Gaza.
mhm,
It kind of makes
yeah,
it more gross. But
yeah.
so for this last
Yeah.
part, I wanted to go over my favorite parts of the DMs because I've sent you a lot of them.
Yeah, I didn't want to distract you from that guy. What was going on with that guy?
So I don't know if you like noticed in one of the first messages where he said being a nation where you're minority surrounded by hostile nations who want you to go away. It hasn't even been 100 years since 6 milk on Jews were killed.
That's great. They
So
did kill a lot of milk on Jews.
that's what I'm saying, dude. 6 at least.
Did they kill them by like pouring milk on them?
They probably dipped an Oreo on them or something, and yeah.
Fuck.
So apparently, the Holocaust is a good defense for glassing an entire country.
Yeah, I guess.
And so throughout these DMs, I got the haunting feeling of like this dude's literally just saying it's okay to kill as many Arabs as we want as long as they're like homophobic or something, and as long as like
terms,
as long as there's like history from 1,000 years ago between these ancient like civilizations. His whole defense was like, well, what about 1,000 years ago when the Palestinians took Israel? And it's like, okay,
I'm ready.
Let's give
I'm ready
US
for everyone. I'm ready for everyone to just reset the clock and just cooperate. You know, can we have a day that like everyone on Earth magically agrees to agree to a day? It's like like year zero. Like history just restarted. We don't have like past stuff to bitch about, and so now we can just figure out how to draw out all the territory, and we can just agree on everything.
within 5 years
Like,
there'd be another holy crusade on the Middle East.
yeah, because humans just can't fucking get along. It
It'd be like,
seems.
yeah, but we want that land.
Yeah. If there's nothing to fight over, you know, we'll make something up to fight over, and that's what we did with all these religions.
Yeah.
And that's what you know, Republicans are doing. That's what everyone's doing.
And the whole thing about, so he was trying to say that because of the land history
Right.
with the Israelis and the Palestinians, that Israel has a right to reclaim that land. And he contradicts himself, because later on in the conversation when we're talking about reparations, I bring up, not only do I think black people should have reparations, I also think Native Americans should receive reparations because of the amount of land we've stolen from them, the amount of treaties we've violated with them.
There's like basically none of them left.
Dude,
Like,
smallpox blankets is one of the most horrific things that will change your mind if you're on the fence about the Native American history in this country. Once you hear about the U.S. and smallpox blankets, it makes you want to commit a revolution. Like, it's so
do you know why
gross.
there's no buffalo in this country anymore?
Yeah, that too. So
Their food supply.
when later on in the conversation he's like, I'm not paying a damn dollar to these people as a white guy, I'm like, then why do the Israelis have this God-given right to take back the Israeli land from the Palestinians, from a land conflict that was like 1,000 years ago? Why do they have that right?
All of these grievances come back to a time when people bathed in their piss because they thought it made them look younger.
Dude, when gravity wasn't even a theory yet.
The most advanced piece of technology anyone had ever seen was a fucking wheelbarrow. You know,
it was like a fork, which silverware originates in the Middle East. I don't know if you know that, but
really,
like some like British monarch or like some kind of royalty from Europe visited. It might have been like a Dutch monarch, actually. I don't remember. Some monarch from Europe visited like Persia, and the people there were using silverware, and he was like, "What the fuck is this? We just use our hands." And it's like the fact that I've heard white people in Europe say barbaric shit about Middle Easterners, and then they bring up like, I bet they eat with their hands. I'm like, you don't even know where silverware came from. And that's the time period we're talking about, by the way.
In a lot of ways,
pre-plague.
That, yeah, in some ways, I mean, obviously, in plenty of ways, those Arab states were not progressive, as they aren't really now. But back at the time, I mean, you know, there was like they had, you know, their own golden age of scientific developments and stuff.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I don't know. That guy seems. I don't even know. I mean, like I said, I just stopped reading it eventually because I'm like, like you. It was such a great juxtaposition between your like highly formatted like list of points and his just like seven like wall of text that took me 7 years to scroll through.
Yeah.
Like I just skipped to your response at a point because I just wanted to be like saved from reading that, and it was just like garbage, you know.
Well,
And it was
it's
hmm,
hard to read towards the end too because he's like
starts
one of
milking on Jews or whatever.
one of my main issues with with his whole argument is he keeps he keeps like putting words in my mouth throughout the whole discussion, where when I say Israel, I'm obviously talking about the government in the
The
same way
idea,
that when I'm talking about the United States, I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people. And
yeah,
so when every time he responds by saying, "But the Jews deserve this, and the Jews need to do this, and they have the right to do that." I'm like, but I'm not talking about the Jews that live in Israel. I'm talking
well, wait.
about
So he had he said Jews deserve to be like repaid, right?
he said Jews deserve reparations, but not black people in the
Not
United
black people.
States and not Native Americans in the United States. And even better is that I even explained to him, I said, but what about, what about the fact that, Jim Crow ended like 10 years before my father was born? You know how recent that
Wasn't that long
is?
ago?
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
most black people in this country are like 1 or 2 generations removed from knowing or being related to somebody who was
Was
directly
like
affected by
owned as
Jim Crow.
property.
There are people
Yeah.
that were friends with Martin Luther King who are still alive. There are people that had grandparents who were slaves that were still alive, or that are still alive today. That's how recent this is. And
That's
this,
why I think as progressives we have to kind of be patient because it wasn't that long ago to where we had people that were owned as property because they had different skin tones and stuff.
yeah,
I mean, like I said, these it's like barbaric and it's fucking um but we're not that far removed from it, and I think that's why as progressives we need to kind of figure out somehow how to be patient and realize that it's going to take generations to undo 500 years of colonialism and slavery and stuff. um you know I would like to just wish we could have no racist people or no homophobic or transphobic people or just bigoted shit in general. um but I mean that's going to take time. If we really want a better society, it's not going to come in 1 generation or 2 or 3 or 10.
yeah.
You know,
And the
so
thing about the whole reparations thing started because I brought up how, you know, I was talking about my one state solution thing because he was like, "What do you think about the 2 state solution?" And I was like, "I don't think anything about it. I think it's a horrible idea. I think right now they already kind of have a 2 state solution where they are using the second state as an excuse to block these people into their borders. And I mean, when you have a 2 state solution, you basically can create loopholes to trap them in their own country because you have control over their border, over whether or not they get to leave Gaza and enter Israel. And
yeah,
if
they
and
like
if you
surround them on all
yeah, and
sides.
if you have good
Yeah,
diplomatic relations with Egypt, like they sort of do, they're going to block you on Egypt's side too. So that's why I said the 1 state solution would merge the
They
West
get
Bank and
boxed in.
Gaza and just make it all pretty much just Israel at that point. Because I mean, it's just a name. It's all about semantics at that point. And
It's
then,
basically like when you're playing like the Civ games and you get boxed in.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's like that.
landlocked. Yeah,
Mm.
and it's one of those things where it's like I don't mind them absorbing the West Bank and Gaza and calling it Israel. It's just a name. It's semantics.
Yeah,
At that point, it's like, yes, they are still Palestinians. In the same way that when a person from Mexico moves here, they don't just suddenly stop becoming Mexican. Like, they're still
right.
Mexican, but now they're also American. So
Yeah, they bring their culture and stuff with
they
them.
bring their culture, they bring their heritage, all of it. And the one state solution enables the Israeli government to create civil rights protections for the Palestinians, make it to where the IDF will actually equally protect the Palestinians from violent right wing racist Israelis, as there are violent right wing racist Americans.
And stop participating in that directly.
Yeah. And
Not
then,
just not arresting people for but encouraging and doing
yeah,
that stuff.
it would prevent settlers from just uprooting Palestinians from their homes. And then comes reparations, which his big problem with the reparations thing was that he had an issue with he thinks Israel's done nothing wrong. That's his problem with the reparations for the Palestinians, and that's why he said that the Jews deserve reparations, I guess, in response to the Holocaust and the Palestinian occupation of the land from centuries ago. And
Yeah.
but here's the thing: the reparations from the Holocaust are immense. I mean, Israel exists because of the Holocaust for the most part. I
Kind
mean,
of as a
that was the
reparation,
final nail in the coffin for Israel's creation, was the Holocaust. Germany, you can't even display anything Nazi related in that country without getting jailed. Video games,
Right.
movies, all have to censor themselves. All great things, by the way. I have obviously no issue with that. The tightness of speech around supporting Nazism in Europe, I kind of support. Like, even though it's a free speech problem, come on, man. Like, we don't need Nazis in
Yeah.
Europe.
Again,
Those are the
again,
reparations.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you exactly on that because it's not a matter of it's not a matter of whether I want people to have those beliefs or not. I don't, obviously, but it's a matter of the precedent that sets for censorship and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's you can that's the price we pay of having a democracy. Can't please everyone.
Yeah.
But no, I do agree with you on that.
So yeah, I mean, it's that was his big problem, is that he thinks Israel's done nothing to the Palestinians, and so why would they deserve reparations? If anything, they should be
So what
getting the
does he do when
reparations.
you like just do what I did, what I talked about, when you just show him like, hey, here's this building in Gaza that just got flattened, or hey, here's this audio clip of somebody admitting to an attack, or
Yeah.
it's like these people just freeze when you actually show them that stuff. So
And
I mean, I guess try that if you haven't already.
and it's one of those things where, like, 2 years ago when the Associated Press building was bombed by the IDF, I remember
Of that.
immediately the IDF was like, "Oh, well, Hamas was setting up headquarters in that building," and note that it's a serious war crime to bomb a press building like that. And
Well, as I'm going to quote myself when I was talking about the atomic bombings on Japan. It's not a war crime if you win.
oh yeah, and
So
yeah, because there's been no punishment. I mean, the UN can be like, that's not okay all it wants, but at the end of the day, the UN has like pretty much zero power to do anything about it, because all these
yeah,
countries are still their own sovereign nations. It's been well established by the Western world, including especially the US, that they can't do anything. Did you know if any American is tried in the like war tribunal that they will invade the Netherlands.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the U.S. has a statute in place that if any American citizen or diplomat is tried in a military tribunal for war crimes, they will invade The Hague.
Damn.
I know, yeah, which is like, would they not take that? I guarantee they would, because, oh yeah, and the U.S.'s allies are also included in that. So if they, let's
I
say
need to
for
read that
instance,
statute because that's kind of scary.
yeah, let's say for instance, Bibi Netanyahu was then put on trial for war crimes at The Hague. What's stopping the U.S. from invading?
Yeah.
They have that statute.
Nothing.
We have a law. We have a law that says we can do it. It's just the whole situation is so wrapped around in so many different ways, fucked up. There's another law in like 37 U.S. states where it's illegal to boycott businesses that are pro-Israel.
Really?
Yeah. There's another law that's being proposed in France that if you come out as anti-Zionist, you'll be classified as an anti-Semite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm like, that's insane that they're going to call people that are anti-Zionist.
France is kind of diving down real hard into the authoritarian shit recently.
It's
kind of concerning.
Well, they've had like a bunch of protests, like recently. It's not recently, but like within the last year, I know they tried to raise the retirement
yellow
age.
vest protest or something.
I don't remember the specifics of that.
I think it was something with like the yellow vests, and that was like their symbol or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I remember the big one was they tried to raise the retirement age to like 70 or something like that, and they were like, no.
Yeah, no.
There's a bunch of protests over that.
Should be lowered.
Yeah, like 60 at least.
Yeah,
but
and you know, and maybe we should have the same thing for our congressmen and our judges and stuff too, while we're at it.
One thing I wanted to mention, because you brought up Gavin Newsom earlier, and I want to end it on the Gavin Newsom note because it'll be wonderful talking about Gavin Newsom.
Oh yeah,
his record is very interesting, as you brought up. But one thing I wanted to bring up is how California is in a surplus, like a massive tax surplus. And one
they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, but the problem is that Gavin Newsom he basically promised that he would build affordable housing in the state of California.
Didn't.
He hasn't, because he keeps bending the knee to homeowners associations. Every time he's like, okay, we're going to pick this area, but our home values are going to go down. What? And it's like,
don't give a shit.
And then he just is like, okay. And he gives up. And it's like, and you can't really build them in LA because of how densely packed LA is. You can't really put them in like, I mean, preferably you'd want to put them in San Francisco, but it's the HOA problem.
Well, that's the problem, is that the infrastructure in general is so fucked at this point. It would take such a massive like plan to actually get affordable housing and all this stuff, because the layout of the country just wasn't planned. I mean, you know, you can trace it back to the, you know, colonialism and stuff, you know, this kind of rapid movement across this country, just building whatever as they just kind of hungrily expanded. You know, it was not, we didn't have the time that European countries had to kind of grow naturally.
Yeah.
We just killed and or kicked everyone out of this country and just did our own thing.
America
so it would take such a huge effort to fix that, which is why I don't think it'll ever happen.
America, and you know, it goes back to what you're talking about, you know, manifest destiny and all that. America has cultivated this weird attitude that's so different from Europeans, where it's like we've created this like entitlement to our land. Like we're like, this is mine. If you do anything to ruin that for me or devalue it in any way, I'm going to get pissed and I'm going to cause an uprising. And America has kind of cultivated this toxic relationship with land ownership. It's like one of the hardest pills to swallow when you're trying to pitch like any socialist form of organization in the economy, because immediately people think of that like tenement in Marxism where it's like, personal property, not private. In their head, they're like, so my property's not protected by the government? Like, that's where their mind goes, and it becomes this...
Literally 1984.
Castle Doctrine is a perfect example. The Castle Doctrine, where it's like, if somebody comes onto your property and you think they're going to do something to you, you can just kill them. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's insane.
Well,
and I don't know. I don't have a plan to really fix that. Hopefully as the future keeps coming, hopefully can figure that shit out.
Yeah.
How to rebuild. We need high speed rail, dude.
Yes.
Like like it would fix so much. Like this car dependent infrastructure is pissing me off.
That's
for
dude,
real.
Dude, look, this is what I'm saying. This is what we need in this country. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. When you bring up high speed rail.
Dude, I love high speed rail. We need
it. When you bring up high speed rail, this is what I think of. This is what we need in this country.
we need Zhao Zhina.
Yeah.
To fucking fix
Zhao Zhina.
I saw that on fucking Instagram. That's crazy.
That's what I think we need.
Yeah.
I love the idea of high speed rail, but it feels like Americans are so like stupid to even comprehend something like that. Yeah, if they can comprehend they can comprehend like 20 lane superhighway that bulldozed through a black neighborhood in the 40s or 1960s that like gets them to work an hour faster.
Like I look at our city and I'm like, how are we gonna future proof this? Where are we gonna put?
Yeah.
Where are we gonna put houses? Where are we gonna? How are we gonna lay this out? And our generation's kind of gonna inherit that problem.
Yeah.
We're inheriting it right now. Look at these fucking apartment prices,
dude. And
$1,700 a month.
And without saying the name of where we live, it's like, have you seen those new places where they're like townhomes, where it's like 4 homes stacked next to each other, like combined into one big building, and it's
I used to live in one of those.
And dude, it's like $350,000 for one slice of it. To buy it, dude, not even rent. You're paying a mortgage on a fourth of that building.
I can't live here. I'm like, this city is, it's grown too fast. Housing prices are not going to go down
unless there's a big housing crash.
Yeah, hopefully, God.
Let's hope the bank fumbles.
Yeah, I've never wished for a major financial disaster, but we need that at this point.
I think the only problem with a housing market crash is that there would be high interest rates, right, on mortgages.
Yeah, I remember it sounds good, but yeah, there's that catch of interest rates. But I mean, if that's short term, obviously I wouldn't mind that. At least I'd be able to afford my fucking house.
Yeah, you can just refinance and get that all adjusted later on.
I'm gonna have to get like roommates to afford a damn apartment.
Yeah, no, we've been discussing with some people that we know about like where to live, and it's so sad how we're like the prep we're putting in is it's like we're prepping to buy a mansion. We're like, all right, we got to figure out our incomes and what jobs we're gonna have, and if they're gonna be steady, and like who's gonna pay for what. And it's like it's literally like an $1,800 a month like rental home. Like it's not even that serious.
Yeah.
But it requires this like ridiculous amount of work.
And because I'm still trying to get on my feet, financially. Like it hasn't even hit me yet. All the money problems because I'm in a position now to where I can afford to have a lot of money to save. I don't have a lot of bills right now, thank God, because
Yeah.
of the situation that I'm in right now. But I know that that's not going to last forever, and so it hasn't even really hit me yet. So that's why I haven't done college yet because it's like I'm not going to be able to afford that.
Super expensive.
I also just can't mentally handle it
Yeah.
after my senior year got ruined by COVID, you know, among other high school problems.
Well, also, I think the student debt pause is over. I think it ended like a month ago.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I had with Biden is he didn't go hard enough on the relief.
Dude, he so could have just like away all the student debt. I mean, it
Yeah,
literally with the signing of a pen, like it's so it's all about the optics though with him. Like the people in this country that did go to college are going to be like I had to pay for my it's just that selfish attitude in Americans where it's like,
right.
like, oh, I had to pay for my college and they're like bitter and I'm like, but imagine if the people in
If
your
everyone else
time,
after you,
yeah,
yeah,
and like imagine if after we absolve all that debt, like it's not just young people with that debt. There are people in like their 30s, even 40s that still have this debt because they got additional
let's
degrees or they
actually think about future
yeah.
generations for once.
And then
Like,
after that we create a
oh,
sustainable government program that isn't just fast food cuz that's bullshit. A non like a funding program that you don't have to pay back that heavily subsidizes education because it builds a
right,
stronger workforce. It builds a stronger generation of people. You know,
exactly.
the smarter people are, the better your country is. But the money hungry, greedy people don't want that because the harder it is to dupe you into buying their bullshit products and to
Hmm.
dumping your money into stupid things like cryptocurrency or stocks,
Fuck yeah,
invest in my bidet company because it's totally going to get off the ground.
dude, I love following crypto scams. They're fucking hilarious.
Crypto is
And
so stock market adjacent. Like it's the same thing.
yeah, basically.
How have people not made the connection at this point that there's
I don't know.
like, where do y'all think that money's coming from? Like, when enough people pay into it, everyone thinks they have a ton of money in it until one person pulls all their stuff out.
And then there's the death spiral.
And then there's none.
Because and then everyone loses faith in it,
Yeah.
so it loses even more money, and it just spirals. And
Did we
you
not have
know,
the exact same thing happen with crypto like a few months ago?
yeah,
Like, it's
that's what
the
I was
same
talking
thing.
about. Yeah, that huge crash where like everyone thought this was like the future of financial transactions and stuff. I mean, and the technology with like NFTs is it's definitely like interesting technology, but like it's not the future. It doesn't work right now. Um, and like legally with NFTs and stuff, there's a lot of weird stuff going on,
Yeah.
a lot of uncertainty. But like, yeah, people anyway. But like, people need to actually just think about future generations for once, and not just like you were talking about with the student relief. Like, I mean, yes, in the back of my mind, I would be like, damn, I had to pay it and they didn't. But then you
Yeah.
also have to be like, okay, that doesn't matter because that's still great for every generation after me
Yeah.
that doesn't have to, um, my parents said that they raised me not to make the mistakes that they did, in their lives. I think that's the kind of approach that we should have with future generations
Yeah.
is to, you know, don't make the same mistakes that we did and, improve.
It's all every progressive position culminates in generally a better society. Everybody has
Yeah.
such a big problem with homeless people. If you don't want homeless people, create more affordable access to higher forms of education, better
Hmm.
childcare services,
Right.
free healthcare,
A
aff-
foster system that
yeah,
works, maybe.
yeah, affordable housing, heavily subsidized temporary housing for homeless people to get a jump start, and then they can move into
Right.
affordable housing. And
Right.
eventually they'll be able to move up into just owning their own home with no government assistance. And if
Yeah, let them
something,
pick.
yeah, and if like let's say one day they get a diagnosis that requires heavy treatment on their body, it's not going to bankrupt them and make them lose their house because it's all going to be
Right.
immensely affordable. Dude, how bad is it that a lot of Americans' worst nightmare is getting diagnosed with cancer, not because of the possibility of death, but because of the
Those are the bills.
cost. Because of the cost, yeah.
Yeah, like my jaw is dislocated actually. Um and I can't afford the surgery for that. You know, I don't like feeling that I'm one medical emergency away from ruining my fucking life, you
Yeah.
know,
I
which is
I recently had to go to an urgent care place because I had strep throat.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And,
remember.
you know, the copay wasn't that much and the pills weren't that much. I mean, granted, in total, it was like $50. And I had to Uber there. So that was like another $15 on top of that. So
Mm.
overall, I spent almost $70 just to get there, get the thing, get the pills. But I receive like emails with the full bill from my insurance, like telling me what they covered.
And you're like, "Oh
If
shit."
if I didn't have my company insurance, it would have been a $400 bill. Like,
Yeah, that's
how
ridiculous.
crazy is it that it's $400 for me to go sit on that bench, for them to swab my throat, go and test it, come back, be like, you have this, hand me my prescription, and then I walk to the pharmacy and buy my pills. Just to get those pills,
400 for that.
$400. Huh?
Yeah, just I mean what you were saying, yeah, $400 for that.
Yeah.
Um and you know, I just don't get it. We have the money. We piss money away all the time like it's nothing.
So
Um,
I wanted
we could
to
easily fix this.
I wanted to give a better example of the health coverage crisis. Do you remember the
Right.
car accident I was in?
Yeah.
So at the time, I didn't have health insurance, and I rode in an ambulance to the hospital already. I like the
What
whole
was it? 10,000
dude.
bucks?
I was laying on the ground. It was like three
What it
thousand
was for
dollars.
me.
It was like $3,000.
Mine was 10,000.
I rolled out of the car and I was laying on the ground. I couldn't get up, and the EMTs hadn't even gotten there yet. And the first things out of my mouth were literally, "Can somebody just drive me to the hospital? I can't afford an ambulance." And my dad,
Oh, no.
like, repeatedly reassured me. He was like, "It's fine, son. Her insurance will pay for it. It's fine." And
Fucking
but
hope so.
he had to like hammer it into my head that
Yeah.
it was okay to take an ambulance because she was going to pay for it. My
Yeah, we never really talked about that. I didn't
Yeah.
know like how bad that was. Yeah,
So
that's fun.
I rode up to the hospital and I was in a neck brace for like the first 4 hours, so I couldn't move. I didn't know what the hospital looked like until I left because I couldn't see going in. I was just
Oh,
laying on
you
a
were like out
gurney.
of it?
I was
Oh
laying on a
yeah.
gurney
Shit.
looking at the ceiling. So to me, I
Yeah.
was just staring at the trauma center ceiling of Grady, like
Oh
just
yeah.
looking at like drop ceiling. And I was there for a total of like 6 hours. And um, by the time we got the bill, without it being negotiated, without it being ran through any form of insurance, $52,000.
God damn.
All
I
I
mean,
had,
I
all I got
yeah.
was the neck brace for the 4 hours. That's not including the ambulance ride, by the way. I received a body scan to see if I was bleeding internally, and then
Mhm.
they discharged me. And they gave me like the smallest amount of fentanyl just so I could like stay awake long enough to go into the scanner. Other than that, no other pain meds. I wasn't even prescribed anything. And so, uh, all of
Is
that.
that your dad telling you to go to bed?
No, he's asking me to get my laundry,
Oh,
but
I know I was fucking with you.
yeah, it's bedtime, man. But Just that, $52,000.
God damn.
They negotiated it down to like 16,000 or 17,000 or
Man,
something like that.
that's ridiculous.
How's there that big of a price discrepancy there? That they're able to take like a $30,000 loss.
I
It
don't
just
know,
goes to
man.
show if you don't have a lawyer with that kind of stuff and you don't haggle them, you're going to be paying outrageous bills.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I mean, my ambulance ride was a long one. I think it was like an hour or two. 10,000 bucks. Um, Part of the reason that I don't have a car right now is medical bills. Because
Whoa.
we've had a family medical situation as well. Um, and I've been kind of chipping in for that. Um, Without like getting too much into it.
Yeah.
But I mean that's basically the reason that I'm kind of in the situation that I'm in right now. And I'm not even living on my own yet.
Yeah.
You know, which is crazy. I mean, I had someone in my family that had a diabetic stroke, and that was like God knows how much money. You know.
I've always tried thinking to myself, like, if something happened to me and I was home alone and my car's broken, so like, I'm like, how would I get to a hospital without breaking the bank or dying? And
Uber, I guess.
I would have to take an Uber, and it's so upsetting that that's my thought. My thoughts aren't even, oh my God, what would happen if I almost died? My thoughts are literally, like, how much is
How am
dying
I
going to
gonna
cost?
afford this?
Yeah, how much is dying going to
Mm,
cost me?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, on that depressing note, is there any thing you want to say before we're almost at 2 hours?
Damn.
Yeah, longest episode ever. By the way, you broke the record for this podcast.
Nice. How many episodes? I really haven't paid much attention to your podcast. I really gotta like look at it.
This will be
Where do I
episode.
find it?
This will be episode 37. I'll send you the link.
All right, nice. That's a
But
great thing to be saying on your podcast is that I'm not familiar with your podcast.
well, it's on a separate channel. I moved
Hola.
it, so it's not very.
Oh yeah.
Like I've even had like people that watch my main channel be like, "Dude, I don't know where your podcast is," which is why I try
I'm
to
really
post
just
it.
not familiar with Discord. Like you were having to like tell me how to use it and shit. I was like, I don't know what to click on or anything.
Yeah. Here.
But I mean, I guess I don't know if I really have anything else to say. Just I don't know. Fuck this whole Israel-Palestine situation, and fuck Trump, I guess. And that's all I have to
Yeah.
say.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, we have a Patreon.
Somehow.
We have a Patreon. I upload the audio episodes early. So, all right. Thank you for joining me for 2 hours. And this is probably like the most thoroughly enjoyable episode I've had in a long time. So,
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I never have anything to like break up my daily routine, so I like jumped at that so fast. I was like, "Fuck, yeah, I'll do
and
that."
what's funny is like I texted you. I was like, "You want to do a podcast?" Like thinking it'd be like in like a week, and then you were like, "Yeah, we can do it tonight." And I was like, "Guess we're doing it tonight. I have nothing else to do."
Oh, I thought you. I didn't know you didn't want to do it tonight. I thought that was what you meant.
Well, I didn't specify. So when you were like, "Yeah, I get off work at this time," I was like, "Oh, I guess yeah. I don't really have anything to do. I guess yeah, we will do it today."
Yeah,
So
I
I
do
mean,
gotta open in the morning.
it worked out. So
Yeah, I
All
do
right.
gotta open in the morning, so I'm probably gonna get a couple rounds of video games in, and then I'm gonna hit the sack.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank y'all for watching, and thank you for joining me.
All right. I'll talk to you later, Dane.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye, bro.
Bye.